with the origin of the number, since that's a big reason what we're celebrating in November. How did 14 become your number?
It was just given to me. So in high school, I wore number 11. That was pretty much my favorite number. Even in middle school, number 11. But when I got up here, obviously, you know, being a freshman, you don't get to choose. So I had 14. Then there was a guy, upperclassman by the name of Chase Laws, who had number 11. And, you know, just a fortunate situation where I started playing my freshman year and we won a national title. So it didn't seem convenient by my junior year, once he graduated, to change my number, so I stuck with it.
What was the significance of 11 growing up? And I don't know, did the thought even cross your mind at all later in your time of like, well, maybe I'll at least kick the tires on maybe switching away from 14?
I definitely wanted 11. Just a number I like. I'm not a big fan of single digits, but I just like the number 1, so having double 11. I had it in basketball and football, just a number that stuck with me growing up. But yeah, I thought about it, but by the time my junior year, you know, I didn't want to switch anything up by that time.
Where did your love of football start? When did you get the bug? When did you start to love the sport?
Ever since I can remember. You know, just talking to my family members, when we reminisce on things, my brothers, sisters, dad, cousins, anybody. You know, they pretty much say, you know, I just walked around with a football. I can remember sometimes where I threw a couple on top of the house where they got stuck. So I just remember always having a ball. It was either football, basketball, or baseball. So I always had a ball.
Were you always one of the fastest players, one of the most elusive players when you were playing as a kid? Were you typically one of the better ones, or were you someone that really didn't start to have success at the level until maybe you got into high school or even closer to college?
I definitely was not one of the fastest, but I consider myself hanging with the pack growing up. I always played quarterback, so I guess it was just natural for me to be able to throw pretty well. So, and I was in a fortunate situation where my cousin, my older cousin, who I looked at as my dad number 2, he was my coach in football growing up, along with my cousin, who's like my brother, who I grew up with. So we was always on the same team. He was always the coach. So I was in a situation where I was the quarterback. You know, not something that I naturally wanted to do growing up, but I figured as I got older, I can throw the ball. And going through middle school and high school, being in a small town, you know, everybody knows all the football players, the basketball players, so being a quarterback just stuck with me. But as far as being fast, I was definitely not one of the fast ones. I always wanted to get like the guys I considered fast. So.
If you're getting balls stuck on the roof, I imagine you've had to have a pretty strong arm at a young age, and where that came from, and were those, when the ball would go up there, you're like, uh-oh, I gotta go, like, would you try to figure it out on your own? Did you have to kind of like lower your head and admit like, hey, I need some help here? What were those tough conversations like, hey, ball's on the roof again?
I remember one of my brothers, he would be one of them that would try to get the balls down, but it got to a point where I had multiple footballs at a time. So if I threw one up there, I had 3 or 4 more, you know, sitting around somewhere to play with.
What was the point, and I assume it was high school, that you kind of hit this other gear where either recruiting interest picked up, or you're like, this could be a ticket for me to do some big things, that things are really escalating, that I think I have a future in this?
Yeah, around my sophomore, junior year, that's when I kind of came to the realization that I really wanted to stick with football. So by the time I got to high school, I stopped playing baseball and I only played basketball and football at that point. And being at the high school I was, we were very traditional and with sending guys to college through football. And we had a lot of great players, and we was on in a program where, you know, if you played varsity as a freshman or sophomore, you was really great. And most of us, like myself, didn't get to start on varsity till our junior year. It's kind of like Alabama, where you have to sit and wait your turn. So that's kind of high school I came from. So yeah, pretty much sophomore, junior year, you know, I had made up my mind that I wanted to see how far I can go with football.
Did being left-handed play any kind of a role in where you decided to go with your athletic pursuits? certainly left-handed quarterbacks are not very prevalent in any level of football, but you turned out to be a great left-handed quarterback. Did that have any role at all in terms of how you decided to pursue what you wanted to do athletically?
No, not at all. Not at all. In fact, that would probably have persuaded me to stick with it. I was a big sports fanatic growing up. I watched Steve Young, and my favorite player, if you can't guess it, was Michael Vick. So that definitely, played a part in me wanting to definitely stick with football.
I guess a lot of people know some of the story of your recruitment, and I guess a team down in Georgia was also involved.
Yeah.
How did App State end up being the right place for you?
Man, that's all the credit to my high school coach, Shell Dooley. It was all him. I never heard of App State at that time. I never heard of Georgia Southern at the time, but my high school coach and my offensive coordinator, Chris Liner, they played a big role in just being the face of the recruitment process for all of us, especially with schools that we didn't know at that time. Growing up, obviously we wanted to go to the big schools, the Clemson, South Carolinas, and when those aren't looking like an option for you, then the smaller schools come in, and when you are unfamiliar with them, you need some kind of guidance. And Coach Dula pretty much, guided me through that process. He guided me to understand that our offenses were similar. We wasn't fully shotgun in high school, but it was about 50-50, and we ran the option. So that pretty much got me here. And once I took that recruiting visit with meeting Coach Moore and all the players, it just felt right.
What's the factual, accurate story of were there schools that were interested in you not as a quarterback? Were there a smaller number that wanted you as a quarterback? How did that kind of play out in terms of what interested you and how that played out?
Yeah, so pretty much the small schools, and when I say small, D1 AA. So, at that time, Appalachian State was D1 AA. Pretty much all those schools, and New Mexico State was the only actual, D1 school that wanted me as a quarterback. All the bigger schools had I had a half offer from Clemson. I would have had offers from Memphis and other big D1 schools, but my OC, Chris Liner, he did all the talking, and he saw what I didn't see at the time. He knew I was a quarterback, and all the big schools wanted me as a DB or receiver, so he pretty much told them, don't even offer him if it's not going to be for the quarterback position.
So many people know about your great moments at App. What are some of your favorite moments from when you played in high school?
Man, you're taking me back even farther now. I can remember vividly, we was backed up on our own 5-yard line, and we put in a special quarterback sneak just to get a few yards, just in case something like that happened. And it just so happened I took it 95 yards off a quarterback sneak. So I can remember that one vividly. I remember against Burns High School, where Trey Elder is from. They was number 3 or number 4 in the nation at that time. We didn't stop them, unfortunately, but offensively we put up some big numbers on them that nobody was able to do. So I remember that game as well.
Did that game have an impact on getting more notice from schools to play at the college level? Playing against a program like Burns, which is so well known in the state and so successful, but to put up those kind of offensive numbers in that type of situation, did that give a boost to your recruitment?
Yeah, it definitely did. Definitely did, along with the other schools in Spartanburg. So at that time, the 3 schools we played in Spartanburg were pretty tough. And we beat 2 of them out of 3 that year. So that definitely gave us notoriety and more recruitment looks.
You get to Boone coming off the first championship that Richie Williams had directed the offense to. Trey's here, as you mentioned him. There's some younger guys also trying to vie to kind of make their way as quarterback options. How did you go from being that fresh face, and I know it didn't start immediately, but to work your way into a guy that could take the field like you did as a true freshman?
The crazy part, I wasn't expecting it. It wasn't, my goal was never to come in and take Trey's spot. My mindset was just like they told me. My mindset was first, either me or Coco. It was pretty much it. That's the future they was looking for, me or Coco to take over after Trey Elder. And I gained the second string spot over Coco, and whoever didn't gain it, they was moving a receiver, as Coco did. And I stayed at quarterback. And in my mind, I was just going to sit back here and soak up as much as I could behind Trey for 2 years, just like I did in high school behind the other quarterbacks. In my junior year, I'd be ready for the role. And it just happened faster than I expected, than everybody else expected.
How did it happen so fast for you? How were you able to have that kind of success so early? Because you mentioned you came from a high school program where you sat for the first 2 years and then started in your junior year. How were you able to pick it up so quickly and have success so fast when you got to Boone?
I would think probably the speed I played at practice. So back then, I don't know if it's still the same now. As a freshman, no matter what position you play, you're getting tackled. So every practice for me and Coco at quarterback, it was like a game. So we got Marcus Morrell at DN, Daniel Oglebar at D tackle. We have those guys on defense. We're going against Corey Lynch, Jeremy Wiggins, our starting D. You don't want to get hit by those guys. So every day was practice for me. So if I didn't come into practice, have my mind right, then unfortunate things may happen. But that's part of it. And then I think just being consistent, and just an unfortunate matter happened when Trey Elder got injured, and I came in, and it just went from there.
Kind of the speed you had, I think the toughness that you had to kind of overcome, not being the biggest guy. Where did that ability to come to be so fearless with some of the tools that you're able to bring, despite maybe not being 6'3", 220 or whatever it is? Where do you think that came from within inside you?
I can contribute that to a lot of people growing up. For one, as you probably can assume, I've never been the biggest. I've always been one of the smallest, not short, but very skinny. Two, what we called it in Greenwood is called throw up tackle. So as a kid, you throw the ball up, whoever has it has to got to go try to score. It could be 10 other kids out there trying to tackle you. So that's the type of thing I did growing up. And also, my cousin who went to Furman, Ronaldo Gray, is much bigger than me. I used to try to fight him all the time. I have older brothers who used to practice wrestling moves on me. So I was pretty much me and my other cousin. We the same age. The one that we was always on the same team with. We were pretty much the crash dummies for everybody else. So after being hit by much bigger people all your life, putting on the pads and getting hit, that was pretty much easy for me.
I think we figured out that you might have missed the equivalent of like 12 full games, whether it's you guys were up big and you didn't have to play the second half or the fourth quarter of a game, or you missed some games too with some injuries that probably came from you blowing your head or taking some of those hits. Would you have traded off any of that of like, hey, if I changed my style, maybe I could have played a little bit more, but I wouldn't have been the same me? Like, was that I guess a good trade-off that you made a little bit?
No, I wouldn't have traded it because most of my injuries were not from somebody hitting me. It was pretty much self-inflicted injuries where non-contact. My shoulder injury was one unfortunate where I think Jerome touched on, or Justin Wose was trying to strip the ball in practice, and instead of me, letting them have it, I'm in game mode. I hang on to the ball and fall on my shoulder, so that was a contact injury. But like most of my knee injuries, they were non-contact. So I definitely wouldn't trade off how I played because that's how I grew up playing. No coach ever, tried to persuade me to do otherwise, and I figured, if I tried to be something I wasn't, that would then have me in the game second guessing, thinking about stuff, when pretty much how I played was just off reaction and just being natural.
How much do you think some of the plays that you made, like you said, where you react and some of the things are just natural, what percentage of some of the amazing plays that you had do you think were just improvising because a play breaks down and you had to make something happen?
I can't put a number on it. I wouldn't say it was a lot. A lot of the great plays, they went to the person they were supposed to. I would say, you know, freshman, sophomore year, early on in my career, I did do more improvising than than I should have. That was just me still learning the playbook. I think my very first touchdown, I threw it to William Mayfield when I wasn't even supposed to be looking, you know, that side of the field. So just being young and inexperienced, but I would, if I had to put a number on it, I would say maybe 20 to 25%. So it wasn't half or anything.
I know when we go through highlights of yours, there's no shortage of stuff, and some of it's great individual plays, some of it's big moments and championship game wins, you know, Michigan wins, stuff like that. Do you have a favorite play from your time here?
Just one?
You don't have to stop at one, but what would you say first? What would
I really can't pinpoint one. Definitely my first game against Georgia Southern, when I met the safety at the goal line and his helmet popped off. So that's definitely a memorable one. That's probably top 3 for me just because of my size and because of probably, you know, some of the stuff they were saying and all the stuff I'm hearing, how little I am. Another one was a similar instance against UMass in the championship game after the safety got me good early in the game, but I was able to, you know, come back and not kind of retaliate, but didn't back down from him. His helmet didn't pop off or anything, but felt like I won that battle over him. I can remember a away game, I think my junior year against Wofford, where the pocket kind of broke down. I had to spin out and threw one to Matt Klein on the sideline. Just some of those. Definitely the Brian Quick touchdown against Wofford. Just trying to, ones that come to my head, and definitely can't pinpoint one play in Richmond. But
a lot.
There's too many.
Yeah.
From a game perspective, you know, I guess let's take out the Michigan game, let's take out the championships, and maybe the Richmond game. What's a game that you think of fondly and say that was a great night or that was a great afternoon? I'm going to remember that game for the rest of my life.
Wofford, Halloween night, ESPN2, yes. And yes, I had a great performance, but it was more about, you know, how they stormed the field, you know, my sophomore year. After that, I think that was our first loss, or it might have been the second. I can't remember which one came first, but that was the year we beat Michigan. And when they stormed the field on us at their house because they just beat us and everything. So it left a nasty taste in my mouth and everybody else's mouth. And there was one game that was definitely circled on the schedule for next year. And for us to come out and have the performance that we did, you know, that's definitely one of those games to remember.
I know the rock looks different than when you played.
Yeah.
And you may have mentioned some of this stuff already, but if you're able to walk on the field and kind of like, I don't know if you would allow your brain to kind of take yourself back into, oh, like I'm rolling to left here and it's 4th down against James Madison. This is where I was when I threw that pass. Or are there some images that would come and pop in your brain if you could step on that field and just kind of replay, I was in this moment at this time? Or
yeah, there's a couple. Again, I don't want to keep going back to it, but definitely Richmond. Sophomore year in the playoffs. I can remember some of those plays vividly. I remember a rollout play where I think the linebacker blitzed or something where I had to roll out and get away from him against Presbyterian, I think my junior year. And I just dumped it off to the running back, Devin Radford, and he took it like 60. I can remember similar to where that play happened on the field. Yeah, so, yeah, and I can remember surprisingly vividly, you know, my first rushing touchdown against James Madison going in towards the scoreboard.
I think Kendall Lamb may have said it that when he comes back here, it's kind of cool to see what those teams in that era, they helped build the tower that wasn't there when you played for part of your career, and then the success then helped build the new end zone building. And when you look at that place, are you able to kind of appreciate and feel some of those things, same things of how it's all kind of just been this boulder that kind of is rolling to something is building something else, to where now that you see the structure that's there today?
Definitely, because I was once in Kendall Lamb's shoes, where the guys that was before me, when they would come up and tell us how different, App State looked before they played, and it's the same thing. So when I come back and I see, man, it's still growing to where, like, you can see App steady going up. So I definitely understand what Kendall's saying, and been in his shoes, where you was once being told that by older guys that played before you, like, man, this wasn't here when I played, or I don't remember this. It's growing. Now you get to do the same. It's crazy.
What kept you so grounded during your career? You accomplished so much. You had so much success, and you're a legendary football figure. But one of the most impressive things about you was you were such a grounded individual, so humble. What do you attribute that to? Kept you so even-keeled, level-headed during all that success?
A few things. For one, I've always been shy growing up. So, as I got older, especially getting the app, and especially after the Michigan game, I had to obviously open up more with interviews and everything. So I've always been shy. Two, I contribute again back to my OC Chris Liner, even before high school, but definitely with him, just he instilled in me how to be a leader as a quarterback. Didn't get to do it here because we ran no huddle, but back then when I had to come out the huddle, instead of walking to the line, you jog to the line with the lineman. So it's just little stuff like that. So, and also just having that quarterback mind, just one play, no matter if it's good or bad, you got to move on to the next one. Whether you threw a great pass or a horrible pass, you have to move on to the next one. So that's all I had just constantly thought about.
I think fans will always try to remember you and place you back as that 20-year-old in the jersey doing all those amazing things. Whether it's through your professional career, just becoming an adult, what are you kind of most proud about that college kid that was here in Boone, the way you've matured and grown up into an adult? What are some of the things that kind of make you most proud of the personal path you've taken, and now you're a family man and all those kind of things?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just trying to instill in them and giving them the opportunities that I had growing up, and allowing them to do what they want to do and be the best they can, and obviously trying to be the best husband I can. So it's pretty much just being the family man. Then obviously, coming back up here and still, get to see older teammates that you played with, coaches, meeting new people, just having those conversations about, how awesome it was back then, and, even still now, just being able to come back and enjoy it. Because, some guys, once they're done playing, a lot of people don't remember them. And one thing just stuck with me from Coach Moore, it definitely, got a little crazy after the Michigan game, and, we catch ourselves complaining about the autographs and interviews at one point. And he said, cherish these moments, because there's going to be a time where nobody asks for your autograph again. So that stuck with me. And just being able to come back up here, 10, 15 years later, and people still ask for your autograph and picture, I just cherish these moments.
How would you describe your relationship with Coach Moore as a player, and then what it's like today, well past that time?
Yeah, I think it's stronger, more, off the field than the player, and that pretty much happened from day one, even before, I was starting. Everybody knows the unfortunate situation with my dad, and when I found out was the North Carolina State game. So that's when I found out, he got sentenced with everything. And after the game, my mom and sister had told me, and I was just devastated. And just having a conversation with Coach Moore from there, it was not about football for him. And from that day, he kept his word just from that conversation. So it's always been bigger than football with Coach Moore. And, you know, every time I run into him, even at school, football would be the last thing we talk about. First thing, how's your family? How's your mom? How's your dad? And at that time, you know, our son wasn't here. Langley was. How's Langley? How's my now wife? You know, he always asked about family. How are you? Then football would be last. You know, how's everything good in school? So it was always bigger than football with him.
What's something from the aftermath of the Michigan game that maybe people don't realize in terms of this happened after the game, and certainly the interviews and the autographs and the notoriety? Is there something you remember from the aftermath of that game that doesn't get talked about very often?
I can remember not being able to just walk on campus anymore. That's one thing. You know, again, I'm shy, so before that game, I can walk on campus, nobody stopped me, go to class and everything, and all that changed. It got to the point where I couldn't even go grocery shopping without being stopped for autographs and pictures. So I can say just pretty much just being in the dark and coming into the limelight. So that pretty much, it was day and night after the Michigan game.
Was it tough to get comfortable with that, or did you ever become comfortable with that?
I would lean more towards uncomfortable, but you know, again, Coach Moore he would give it to us every chance he get. You know, just cherish these moments. So I just fought through being uncomfortable. So
the way the NFL and just the way the quarterback position is evaluated, it's different now than it was then.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's more appreciation for the kind of skill set you had of, you know, Kyler Murray, or I don't know, just some of those guys that can make plays with their legs and maybe didn't fit the mold of what was kind of considered a prototypical guy then. Do you ever think about just how the game has changed and how maybe you could fit in more like the modern day football a little bit? I know obviously you're not that far removed from playing, you know, professional receiver and stuff like that.
Yes, definitely. Because when I was in school, you know, it was considered a gimmick offense that we ran. But now, now you got almost all your professional teams that's doing it, and they're succeeding. And just to see, you know, there was a time when I first got drafted, I wanted to play quarterback. There's no question about it. I played it since 6 years old, and just trying to make that transition was tough. But you know, seeing how the game has evolved with some of your best quarterbacks playing out the gun, doing the run pass option, the RPO, and succeeding with it is just great to watch.
I would almost say that the NFL maybe wasn't ready for a quarterback of that skill set. I mean, I think about when Lamar Jackson came out of Louisville, Heisman Trophy winner, and there were people saying he should be a wide receiver in the NFL, and clearly people were wrong about that. And so I think it was always tough for a quarterback of your skill set to, at that time, to be looked as someone who could play quarterback at the next level. But I think we're realizing that now in this age of the NFL that clearly there's a place for the Lamar Jacksons of the world, who's an MVP now in the NFL. Do you think back about, you know, if the timing was different, that maybe quarterback could have been something in the NFL?
Yes, definitely. That was my dream position. So, and it's one thing that I didn't get to experience to that what if moment. But you know, I'm past that now, and you know, I'm just sit back and enjoy watching it now, and hopefully, you know, my son keeps doing what he's doing, and him and my daughter, you know, whatever sports they want to continue in, where I can just sit back and enjoy watching them.
Are you finally your son's favorite quarterback? And your daughter's favorite quarterback? Or?
That's a good question. I have to ask him.
We know Cam Newton was there for a while, but I think you finally swayed a little bit during your CFL career. Just to be here talking to us, it's obviously related to the honor that you know is bestowed upon you to have your jersey retired. What does that mean to have that recognition when you found out the news? And certainly there's, you know, on November 25th, such a big day centered around that. What does it mean to have this honor here?
It means a lot. Even more so knowing that, you know, this is going to be the last jersey. So like I barely, snuck in the door. So, but no, all seriousness, it means a lot, and it just goes to the appreciation and hard work, not only from me, but the coaches we had, the players that I was on the field with, because I made a lot of bad throws. That that the running backs and receivers made spectacular catches and made up for it. So even though it's my name and my number, they definitely have their name and numbers going up there as well.
Just the connection you'll have with App State. I mean, everyone has always considered you a legend here, and just this further cements that. Of just when you think about this place, what makes it special for you? Just this campus, this program, this town.
Obviously, it's one of the most beautiful places to come to, so that's easily recognizable when you drive up here in the mountains. Another thing, just the atmosphere. Something feels different when you get up here, and that's exactly what I felt on my recruiting visit. Just something different in the air, and obviously the people, not just the players and coaches, but the fan base and the people that grew up here and that's always rooting for us. It just feels like another family. It's always family oriented up here, so that's what I loved about it.
This may be awkward to answer, but how do you want to be remembered by years and years and generations of App fans that are going to see your number and your name forever etched into the history of this program and all the moments that will live on? But in terms of the person, Armanti Edwards, the individual, how do you want to be remembered by the fans of App State?
It's simple, a great guy to be around. As long as that reputation holds up, I really don't care about the football accolades or anything like that. I can't remember who said it, but I learned from that as well. I want to say it was Michael Jordan. I don't think it was Michael Jordan. It's another legend in the sport, but they said records are meant to be broken. So I don't expect my records to hold up or anything that nature. So I want to be, just remembered beyond football as a great husband, father, and just a great person, all-around person to be around.
Maybe last one for me. Do you think November 25th will be emotional for you?
I don't know. That's a hard one. It's very hard to get me, emotional to the point of crying tears. So I don't know if that will happen. Emotionally happy and just heartwarming, that'll definitely happen. But that's a hard one if you talking emotion, equating it with tears. So we'll have to see.